Thanks for joining us here on the CBN News Channel. I'm Ephraim Graham. A big milestone in the immigration debate. The Senate has approved a comprehensive immigration reform bill. But Speaker of the House John Boehner says he will not take up the Senate bill. He says his goal is to create his own bill that reflects, quote, the will of the American people.
The bill as amended is passed.
When this legislation finally becomes law, it will make us stronger as a nation.
Here in America, generations of unfulfilled dreams will finally come to pass. And that's why I support this reform. Not just because I believe in immigrants, but because I believe in America even more.
The Senate's sweeping immigration bill includes a path to citizenship for millions of undocumented immigrants, expands visas for low-skilled workers, and carries some of the toughest enforcement measures ever. Supporters of the bill say it will also help secure the U.S.-Mexico border, increasing the number of agents and the amount of fencing. But opponents say there's no guarantee the border will actually be secure because so much is left to the discretion of the Department of Homeland Security.
There's just no way I can look at my constituents, look them in the eye, and tell them that today's assurances won't become tomorrow's disappointments.
House Republicans want to make sure security measures are in place and working effectively before agreeing to a path to citizenship.
People have to have confidence that the border is secure before anything else is really going to work. Otherwise, we repeat the mistakes of 1986.
The immigration bill now heads to the House, where it's sure to face tough challenges. Many Republicans in the House are working on their own immigration legislation. House Speaker John Boehner says the House won't vote on any immigration bill until he's certain it will pass. President Obama applauded the Senate for passing the immigration bill, saying the U.S. is one step closer to fixing its broken immigration system. The president says Wednesday's Supreme Court ruling on marriage are a victory for American democracy. New Jersey Governor Chris Christie disagrees, calling the move to erase part of the Federal Defense of Marriage Act a bad decision and an example of judicial supremacy. For many Christians, the question now is what the rulings mean for religious freedom. Our Heather Sells has the latest.
Speaking while on tour in Africa, the president praised the Supreme Court decisions and acknowledged concerns about religious liberty.
When it comes to people's personal views and their religious faith, etc., I think we have to respect the diversity of views that are there. But when it comes to how the state treats people, how the law treats people, I believe that everybody has to be treated equally.
But how that tension plays out is unclear.
The Supreme Court, though they may think so, have not yet arisen to the level of God.
What worries many in the faith community, Justice Kennedy writing that, quote, animus against gays motivated Congress to pass the Defense of Marriage Act. The Family Research Council now fears discrimination lawsuits against Christians that don't support gay marriage. And Thomas Peters at the National Organization for Marriage says the president's narrow view of religious freedom is also a concern.
By saying that you're not going to be forcing pastors to do a same-sex marriage, that implies that Christians only have their rights when they're within their church walls. Christians have the full First Amendment rights to stand for marriage in the public square, in their businesses.
On the 700 Club, the ACLJ's Jay Sekulow said he's already heard from a number of concerned pastors, but cautioned against overreacting.
I think the reaction needs to be measured, and measured means, look, really, other than the federal benefits going, I'm not saying that's insignificant, it's the status quo as it was before. 38 states, I think, do not allow same-sex marriage.
What is clear, change at the federal level is already underway. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel says the Pentagon is working to extend benefits to the spouses of gay military members, and gay activists are doing more than just celebrating. They've already filed legislation that would give gay married couples federal benefits in all 50 states. The Respect for Marriage Act would effectively repeal DOMA by ensuring that state of ceremony trumps state of residence. Heather Sells, CBN News.
There is no evidence the IRS targeted progressive groups in the same way they did Tea Party groups seeking tax exemption. That is according to a top Treasury watchdog. In a letter to Congress, Tax Inspector General J. Russell George acknowledged the term progressive appeared on a list flagged by the organization, but said he did not have reason to believe their applications were set aside for further scrutiny. This comes as the chief of the Internal Revenue Service, David Werfel, faced further questioning from the House Ways and Means Committee Thursday.
And Mr. Werfel, let me be clear. Until the IRS proves that it can responsibly manage its current funds, the IRS will not see one more dime in taxpayer funding. We need real reforms, and they must be implemented so the American people can have a restored faith that they have a government that works for them, not against them.
In fact, I believe that any
This is Werfel's third appearance before Congress since being appointed to lead the troubled agency last month. A federal appeals court has given Hobby Lobby a last-second reprieve. The arts and crafts chain was facing millions of dollars in fines that were set to kick in on Monday. That's because it is refusing to obey the contraception mandate that is part of Obamacare. It requires all businesses to provide birth control coverage, including those for abortion-inducing drugs. The deeply religious family that owns Hobby Lobby says obeying the mandate would mean violating the Christian faith. The Obama administration has suggested only churches should be given a religious exemption from the mandate. But as Paul Strand reports, many religious institutions say it is wrong to declare them not religious enough for that tax exemption.
The block-long Baptist College Criswell in Dallas only grants religious degrees, so it wasn't about to stand for being defined by its government as not religious enough, because then, as of July 1st, it'd have to pay for insurance plans that cover abortion-inducing drugs. That or pay fines so steep the little college might have to shut down. The religious rights defenders at nearby Liberty Institute took Criswell's case to court.
Ultimately, it is the federal government telling people of faith to violate their religious beliefs, and if you don't, you're going to suffer fines and penalties.
Tiny Criswell College has shown no matter how big the government is and no matter how small you are, sometimes it's smart to stand up and fight.
Because Liberty Institute's arguments prevailed.
The government initially has conceded that what Criswell does not have to provide insurance coverage for abortion-inducing drugs at this time.
One of the most galling things for Mateer in this fight has been seeing just how blind government bureaucrats are to the fact church workers aren't the only deeply religious people.
So they've put into a box. Their box is if you're a church. If you're a church, then you don't have to comply. All believers make up the church universal. The federal government just doesn't understand that.
The Criswell case is one of more than 50 challenging the HHS mandate. But so far, it's one of only a couple of dozen where the religious plaintiff has been told they won't have to comply.
Criswell College says it's grateful for the way its case has turned out, but this fight goes on because so many other faith-based groups are still seeing their religious rights violated by the HHS mandate. Paul Strand, CBN News, reporting from Criswell College, Dallas, Texas.
Middle school and high school students in North Carolina could soon get lessons about the dangers of abortion. A bill requiring public schools to teach the lessons cleared the North Carolina House Thursday, but it also stirred up a scientific debate about whether abortions cause miscarriages and whether educators should be teaching it in the classroom. One of the bill's sponsors pointed to a number of publications that support his cause.
We actually made sure that it was going to be taught in middle school and above so that it wouldn't be taught in lower grades. And I think ultimately we hope that it's going to save lives and it's going to save costs for the state of North Carolina.
Opponents pointed to the World Health Organization, which says it finds no concrete evidence that links abortions to miscarriages or premature births. Obama administration officials recently met with a controversial Muslim cleric at the White House. Abdallah bin Baya is vice president of the International Union of Muslim Scholars, a group founded by Egyptian cleric Yusuf Qaradawi. Qaradawi is considered the spiritual leader of the Muslim Brotherhood, and he's called for killing Jews and Americans. He's banned from entering the U.S. The IUMS is an outspoken supporter of Hamas and in the past has called for the destruction of Israel and resistance to American troops in Iraq. According to the investigative Project on Terrorism, Baya met with national security officials at the White House on June 13th. He posted this picture you see there of the meeting on his website. He reportedly urged the administration to give more support to the rebels in Syria. The White House confirmed the report and said it reached out to bin Baya because he spoke out against al-Qaeda. 2 U.S. anti-Islam activists are being barred from entering England this weekend. This comes after reports they were planning to speak at a rally. In a statement, the UK Home Office said, quote, the Home Secretary will seek to exclude an individual if she considers that his or her presence in the UK is not conducive to the public good. The American activists founded the organization to stop the Islamization of America. Coming up, presidents, zombies, and monsters. Find out if any of the movies at the box office are good for your family.
Hello? Is this thing on? Hey, kids, do you love games? And do you love discovering things? Well, do ya?
Then you're gonna love this. It's the new free Superbook Kids Bible app. You can play games, watch videos, find answers to your questions, and a whole lot more. The new Superbook Kids Bible app. Free downloads available on iTunes now.
Former Republican Senator and presidential candidate Rick Santorum is moving from politics to entertainment. Santorum is now CEO of Echolight Studios, a Dallas-based Christian film company. He joined the company's board a year ago. He says he believes Echolight has the opportunity to transform the culture through entertainment. The company's first film is called The Redemption of Henry Myers. It is scheduled to be released this fall. Are you looking for something to watch at the theater this weekend? Here with this week's movie review is Bob Waliszewski. He's director of Focus on the Family's entertainment review department called Plugged In Online. Bob, let's begin with the new action film White House Down. It's PG-13, but the question is, at the right rating for the movie?
Yeah, not in my opinion. I think some of us would say, haven't we already seen this movie already? Olympus Has Fallen came out earlier, basically the same type of plot. This one, you have a Secret Service agent, or actually a would-be Secret Service agent. He's a security officer now. He finagles an interview to be a Secret Service agent, and he takes his daughter. Just happens to be the terrorist attack at the same time. Now the president's life is in jeopardy. He jumps in to do what he can. Of course, by the end of the movie, I'm going to guess, and I saw it, of course, and our viewers will guess that he probably does save the president. It has all the potential to be a popcorn muncher film that we could just kind of sit back and enjoy, except for the fact that this PG-13 includes a boatload, and I mean a boatload of language, including so many misuses of Jesus' name as a curse word. I cannot recommend this one for that reason alone.
Well, last week we didn't get the chance to speak with you. Tell us what you thought of World War Z.
You know, it's better, even though it got the same numeric rating than White House Down. Brad Pitt is saving the world from zombies, but there's something about a war movie involving zombies, that especially a very gruesome one at times and a very violent one at times, that also is not one of those films that I can just wholeheartedly recommend. I like the messages of sacrifice. And Brad Pitt does something very heroic by the film's end that I won't spoil for those few that want to go see it, but it's just not worth shelling out the $9 for.
Well, finally, how about Monsters University? Is that one good for the kids?
That one is good for the kids. This is a film that I gave a 4.5 out of 5 for family friendliness. Actually, a prequel to Monsters, Inc., Pixar's first film dealing with the monsters. In this one, we find out how Mike and Sully once didn't get along at all. They were quite competitive. They were quite annoyed with each other. So how did they actually become friends and get involved in the scaring that happens in Monsters, Inc.? 4.5 out of 5. A little bit of frat boy partying wink, you know, that we have to deal with. But I think families can navigate that issue quite well with their kids. I think this is a good one to get out of the summer heat and go into an air-conditioned theater with the family, Monsters University.
All right, at least we get 1 out of 3. Thank you so much, Bob.
You bet. We'll talk soon.
All right. Up next, agricultural jihad. See the latest Arab tactics for seizing land and how the Israelis are fighting back. 33 Mexican evangelicals are grateful to be alive after being captured and tortured by Catholic villagers in Chiapas, Mexico. They've since been released. The Voice of the Martyrs Mexico reports the evangelicals were attempting to return to their homes near San Cristobal after 3.5 years of forced exile. Pastor Armando, pictured right there, says he and others were hung by a rope and doused with gasoline. They barely escaped with their lives. 5 were hospitalized. Village leaders also seized Pastor Edris Alonso of the Eagles Wings Church. He's a longtime defender of freedom to worship in Chiapas. Leftists and traditionalists have forced more than 35,000 evangelicals from their homes in Chiapas during the past 35 years. Muslim radicals in Nigeria have murdered a Christian pastor by slitting his throat. They revered Jacob Kwiza was a retired Church of Christ in Nigeria. Last week, Islamists hunted him down near Mogaduri, according to witnesses who fled the scene. The Muslims ordered the pastor to renounce his Christian faith and to convert to Islam. When he refused, they slashed his throat. Islamist extremists also torched at least 4 churches in the area, and the Muslim terrorist group Boko Haram murdered at least 16 high school students there because they were receiving Western education. The gunmen shot them down while they sat at their desks. Secretary of State John Kerry is trying to start up the so-called Middle East peace process again, but there's a big problem. Palestinians still refuse to recognize Israel's right to exist. They also want Israel's land. And as Eric Stackelback shows us, the Palestinians and their supporters are using creative new methods to try to take it.
For many Americans, a stroll through the neighborhood park is a great way to find peace and relaxation. Residents of the Israeli town of Gush Etzion feel the same way. Yet when they began planting trees to spruce up a local state park, they got a rude awakening from their Arab neighbors.
The water pipes were cut by the Arabs and the trees didn't get water, and this is what was left of them, completely dry and completely dead.
Nadia Matar's group, Women in Green, is dedicated to safeguarding Israel's biblical lands. Netzer, a park in Gush Etzion on Israeli state land, has become a flashpoint in that struggle.
The Arabs have a very big difficulty to see the Jews planting on their biblical, God-given homeland, even in areas where there's no dispute at all, like here.
For years, the Jewish residents of Gush Etzion have been coming here to Netzer, and they've been planting trees. They're trying to make this land beautiful. Some of the local Arabs have been coming here, oftentimes by cover of night, not only chopping down the trees, but even cutting the irrigation lines. Gush Etzion lies south of Jerusalem and Bethlehem, an area known biblically as Judea. The UN, however, calls this region the West Bank and wants Israel to hand it over to the Palestinians. Gush Etzion Mayor Davidi Perry told CBN News Israelis are simply developing the same sovereign land where Jews walked thousands of years ago.
We are, as people that live here, want to keep the pieces of lands, to extend the communities, to have agriculture like trees and stuff. But the Arabs want to, so they're trying to fight through the land. They're trying to take out the trees.
Perry says Gush Etzion residents often face violence from local Palestinians.
These Arabs live under the Palestinian government, let's say, and they have the feeling that they have to fight with us, and they go out to the roads, throwing stones, firebomb.
Matar calls destruction of Jewish planted trees here agricultural jihad, funded in part, she says, by anti-Israel groups and the European Union.
All of a sudden, they've been funded so well that they go up with tractors, fancy tractors all over, and steal our land, our state land.
Further south in Israel's Negev region, another controversial attempt to seize land is underway. CBN spoke to one activist who calls it a silent conquest by Israel's Bedouin minority.
The Arabs have realized they can't beat us with war. They can't beat us with tanks, with missiles, even with suicide bombers. So what they're doing is they're taking the land piece by piece, and there are no tanks in this war. It's tractors, it's bulldozers.
Ari Briggs is a spokesman for Regavim International, an organization that wants to preserve and protect Israel's national lands. He says that the historically nomadic Arab Bedouins are taking up residence illegally in the Negev, a largely desert region that makes up some 2/3 of Israel's overall land. Although the Bedouin originally hail from Saudi Arabia and only migrated to Israel a few hundred years ago, the UN treats them as natives and supports their claims.
There are Bedouin all over the Middle East. And the only place the UN has classed them as indigenous is to southern Israel, to the Negev.
Now Briggs says some 90,000 Bedouin have set up shop in the Negev, not far from Beersheba, one of Israel's largest cities. Imagine such a scenario developing in the deserts outside Los Angeles or Phoenix, and you get the idea. Crime, poor education, and a lack of women's rights are common in Bedouin communities. The Bedouins' rapid demographic growth is another challenge for Israel.
They have on average 3 to 4 wives, on average 20 to 30 kids, the highest growth rate in the world, 5.6%. It means they double their population every 15 years.
Like in Netzer, Briggs says the Bedouin land grab is funded by Israel's enemies abroad.
They understand the importance of taking over the land of Israel. They couldn't do it with tanks. They couldn't do it with missiles. Now they're doing it with good money. Also coming in, of course, from Qatar, from Bahrain, from the UAE, from Saudi Arabia.
Briggs believes money is also being raised in American and European mosques to support the Bedouins' efforts. He wants the Israeli government to do more to protect the Negev. Meanwhile, in Netzer, locals promise to continue planting trees despite Palestinian and international hostility.
Hopefully with God's blessing they will stay and they will grow and they'll be beneficial for all those who live here, both the Jews and the Arabs who are living here.
Eric Stakelbeck, CBN News, reporting from Gush Etzion, Israel.
Independence Day is just a week away, and the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission is showing Americans how to get through the holiday without blowing themselves up. The organization held fireworks safety demonstrations on the grounds of the National Mall in D.C. Data shows 60% of all fireworks injuries occur around this time. CPSC says it is important to know which fireworks are safe.
Consumers should only use consumer fireworks, never use professional, illegal, or homemade fireworks. If you're going to use consumer fireworks, follow these simple steps. Have a dry, flat surface, always have a water hose available, never bend over a firework when you light it, and never pick up a dud.
Listen to this. Last year, more than 5,000 people were treated in emergency rooms around the country. Be safe indeed. That is going to do it now for the CBN News Channel. You can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about at cbnnews.com. And take the time to tell us what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can do that on Facebook or at CBN News on Twitter. Hope you'll join us again right here next time. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody.
Introducing the CBN Bible from CBN.com. Now, an easier way to study the Bible and grow in your faith. Highlight your favorite verse. Read separate versions at a glance. Click and read a commentary. Or cross-reference your favorite verse using the Strong's Concordance. All the right tools to study the Bible, all in one place. The CBN Bible, available at cbn.com/Bible or the iTunes App Store.